Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 149. As promised, we're taking a closer look at Pool C and what England will have to face in the group stages starting next week. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. Only a week tomorrow before the Rugby World Cup kicks off with Japan against Russia on Friday. A week tomorrow. And then, of course, a few days later, England's campaign begins on Sunday with their opening game against Tonga. And to discuss everything pre-World Cup, just before it all kicks off, of course, I'm joined by Dan. Hi, mate.
Hello, mate. Only a week. It's come round quicker than I thought, actually. I've been waiting so long, and now it's just suddenly come upon us.
Indeed. I can't wait.
Mate, I can't wait either.
So many sick days.
I don't even know if I'm even going to justify by calling up with a sick day. I think I'll just not be there. It's the Japan-Russia match doesn't grab my attention. New Zealand-South Africa. Now that game will be worth watching. And then obviously the main event, England-Tonga.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. There's France on the Saturday, obviously, as you say, New Zealand, South Africa. You've got France against Argentina, the opening game in our group, also on the Saturday. That'll be worth a watch because they're the two that I guess, on paper at least, we're most concerned about.
For sure.
And even Australia-Fiji will be an interesting one. I don't think Australia will struggle too much, but you never know with Fiji. I think the thing with Japan-Russia is it's going to be the opening ceremony. It's the first game of the World Cup. Japan clearly have set this up to ensure that they've got a game they're expected to win in their opening bid, which is fair enough. But the whole thing's just going to be awesome. Just got to make sure we don't get our timings confused. It's all early mornings, isn't it? So I think the game's typically kind of 8:15. Sorry, is that right?
Sounds right. I think there's like an 8:15 and an 11 a.m. one. Or
yeah, something like 8:15 and 11:45, maybe. I don't know, something like that. Yeah. But you're right. Yeah, they're not painfully early, which is nice.
So just before we crack into something, like this week they were saying, I think the England team got held up at the airport. I mean, there's typhoon warnings and things in Japan. Now, I like the fact that we're having a World Cup in a new country, spread rugby globally. Am I the only one who thinks, don't put the World Cup in a place where there's going to be typhoons?
I mean, yeah. To be honest with you, I don't know enough about the climate in Japan generally. Is it typhoon season? Or is this has this one just kind of come about and it's a concern? Like,
I don't think. Well, that's what I'm not sure. If it's just happened and it's a one-off, then fair enough. But from what I've heard, it sounds like this was always a possibility.
A likely scenario.
Yeah, I don't know if likely, but it was always a definite possibility. And for that can have huge impact because if a game gets cancelled, it doesn't get reorganised. The points are shared. If we had our games cancelled against Tonga USA and suddenly instead of getting the bonus point wins, we're sharing the points, I'm starting to get a little pissed off with that. Yeah,
that will be... are you sure that's...
Yeah.
Well, that is an interesting one. God, can you imagine? Can you imagine like New Zealand don't get out of the group stages because the points all get shared?
I don't give a shit about that. What I care about is, can you imagine we don't because of that?
No, we play in all weather. It's fine. We'll play in a typhoon. Bring it on. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed that nothing gets spoiled by that because that would be a huge blow to the World Cup. I feel like they might have to relook at that. In a situation.
We'll see what impact it has. It may not. This may not turn into a reality, and it may just be a unlucky freak turn of nature. I genuinely don't know, but it did seem when I was hearing about all of this, it did seem to me this could have been better planned. It's like the Football World Cup. Let's go to Qatar. Yeah, well, won't we play in 40-degree heat? I mean, fair enough, there were more bundles of cash being handed around for that than anything else, but I don't think World Rugby is quite as corrupt as FIFA. So
that we know of.
That we know of. I'm sure it's not, but it does. It seems a strange choice, but never mind. It is what it is. We're there. Japan's, by all accounts, and I've never been, but by all accounts, an absolutely incredible country, and I think it's going to be a great World Cup.
Mate, and so many teams. We obviously are confident in England, but so many teams in with a good shout. I think I saw a stat floating about Facebook this week that showed, I think it was England, South Africa, and New Zealand all 1-7, lost 2, drawn 1 in the last 10.
That makes things interesting, doesn't it?
And then below them, Wales 1-7.
Wales has got to be the same.
Wales
1-7, lost 3.
1-7, lost 3. And I think below them there was another team or two that had 1-7 or 1-6, lost 3, drawn 1 or something. So the point was there was a good sort of 6 or 7 teams where, and you can't read too much necessarily into past results. Because particularly in a build up to a World Cup, you've got warm up games where things are being tried and tested, and so you kind of have to take it with a pinch of salt. But nevertheless, it's certainly it creates what appears to be a pretty even playing field, which is going to make for a really interesting World Cup. So let's hope that nothing like cancelled games and shared points gets in the way of seeing this one turn out to be an absolute blinder. We promised some time ago that we were going to do an episode where we were going to focus on our pool. We're going to do that today because it's really our last chance before it all starts to kick off, because next week we're obviously going to have to start looking at England, Tonga, and there will be obviously things to discuss about other games that are coming up. And once the World Cup gets underway, we're going to have plenty to talk about. So we're going to do that today. We're going to take a look at Pool C, have a look at the games that we're going to have in the group stages. But just before we get into that, we have had, people have answered our call down. We asked for more reviews last week. We've had 5 new reviews.
Lovely.
Which is awesome. So I'm going to do a quick, go through those quickly now. What have we got? So Tommy gave us 5 stars. He says, the best rugby podcast. This is the greatest rugby podcast around at the moment and has been for a while. They put forth great questions about the team that the other podcasts or pundits won't, which will leave you talking to your mates about all the different scenarios for how England will win their next game, 6 Nations, and of course the holy of holies, the William Webb Ellis Cup. And if their loyalty, passion and belief for England rugby doesn't inspire and win you over, then their Italian accents certainly will. I have to say, they were on par with Brad Pitt's in Inglourious Bastards.
Tommy is another rose-tinted brother in arms.
Of course. I mean, that is what we're all about. We've then got from Sniffy from Sheffield, another 5 stars. England versus Italy. Great pod, long time listener. This is a quick front row appreciation. Jamie George made Dane Coles look more like Dan Cole. George's run down the left wing and deft inside out the back door offload made me simply whimper with joy. Then Sinks comes on and makes Cipriani's wrists look distinctly silver. All the time Ellis Genge is running around like Johnny May on speed, but with the bulk of a teenage rhino. And I'm pretty sure the Ronaldo lines in his hair have given him another yard of pace. Very cool indeed. Our front row is by far and away the best in the world. Keep up the good work, and the pod boys absolutely superb. P.S. I couldn't care less which side of the scrum a prop plays. They all seem to be extensions of the midfield anyway.
Good. That confused me for a second. So, firstly, thanks very much for the review. But when he said front row appreciation, I automatically assumed this man was a front row person. But I've never heard a front row speak so eloquently. So clearly not. It was just a front row appreciation, and we appreciate it.
Indeed, we do. That was awesome. Thank you for that. Then we have from Lock Matty. Midweek Essential, 5 stars again. I've really been enjoying the podcast over recent months. They certainly break up the week, keep my mind rugby focused, which helps when you're heading off to Japan soon. And of course, they provide a modest/truthful reflection of everything England rugby. I'm glad you boys run a different style of podcast to the other ones out there, Joe, etc. They're good, but I rate the topics and conversations on here more. Class so far, gents. Just back Rory. He is quality and is 100% a secret weapon for the breakdown and innovation in attack.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much for the review. So I love to hear that because, like you say, I'm by no means anti him, but I'm looking forward to that. That's good to hear. It's good to finally have somebody who knows something about the guy because we clearly don't know enough about him yet.
So that's awesome. Another 5 stars there. Love it. Thank you so much for those. And then AKA WD40, 5 stars. I think he's commented before, but that doesn't mean we can't comment again. He says, great pod, just don't ask about props. Great pod that not only isn't ashamed to show its bias, but wears it as a badge of pride. Yes, we do.
Agreed. Thank you very much.
It's not all roses, Dan. It's not all roses. You Bend says, love the bias, but, and he gives us 1 star, bit harsh. Unfortunately, the actual rugby discussion is painfully poor, cliche after cliche, with no actual discussion on tactics.
So I think something to probably point out. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to argue that. I think something to point out is we've had quite a few new listeners recently, for which we are truly grateful. I think we should probably reiterate where we are as a pod and what we are all about. And Akers, you speak a lot better than me on this, so I will hand over to your description.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Yeah, people just need to appreciate that if they want to go and get tactics, and really in-depth rugby chat, there are some great podcasts out there that will look at things, from a professional perspective, and analyse games and analyse performances. We're 2 guys, like a lot of our listeners, who like to go down the pub, have a few pints and talk about the rugby. In fact, that's what we used to do. And then we decided there's this thing called podcasting, and basically you just record these conversations and then share them, and people may or may not listen. And we decided to give it a crack a couple of years ago. We made some pretty bold statements about England, and amazingly, there are people out there who seem to enjoy what it is we have to say. So, yeah, look, we're not claiming to be rugby pundits and professional media journalists and blah blah blah. We're just 2 mates having a chat about England. Sometimes we might manage to slip in some tactical sounding knowledge. It's if we do, it's fluke. We just like to talk about the game that we love and the team that we love, and it sounds like we've got a fairly decent number of people who agree with what we have to say, Dan. Apologies that it didn't live up to your expectations, you Bend, but it is what it is. I don't know what more we can say to that. Hopefully those of you that give us the 5 stars are enjoying what it is that we do.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. Thanks for your review, you Bend. I hope we don't lose you as a listener, but if it's tactics and things you're after, I'm afraid we are not the place to come to.
We're not. Maybe just tune in, every now and then for a bit of the bias that you say you love, because that I can assure you will not be in short supply. But look, anyone, but I'm mentioning this to you Bend, but anyone, get in touch with us, email us, englandrugbypod@gmail.com, or you can get in touch with us on social media at englandrugbypod, and let us know what you would like. If there are specific things that you want us to look into, by all means, we'll have a look and see if it's something that we can offer an opinion on. No doubt we will try. But yeah, just can't promise it won't be cliche after cliche, because that's kind of our USP.
That's kind of us as people as well.
Mainly you.
Well, it's certainly me as a person. Right, so let's, guys. Thanks so much for the review. We mean a lot. We've got our listening figures are high, which are great, and high for us, obviously.
Yeah, they can always get higher. Keep it coming, guys.
Exactly. I guess it was always going to be sort of come around the World Cup, but let's, as Andy said, we're going to have a quick look at our group. We won't go into too much depth about each team because, quite frankly, we don't have the knowledge, but we can give an overview, and hopefully we'll be able to share some sort of information on some of the guys in our group, and just maybe put a bit of perspective on where the teams are compared to England.
Indeed. Well, we open up against Tonga, so why don't you start there?
Yeah, exactly. So we've sort of shared this. So I've just done a quick overview. So Tonga, if you look at them, their last 10 games, they've lost 7 and won 3. The teams they beat are Samoa, Fiji, and Canada. Now they're not Mickey Mouse teams, but equally they're not. They're not top teams. Tonga's. I'll go into a bit more depth in that in a second. Tonga's nickname, as every self-respecting rugby fan knows, is Akali Tahi, which, if my Tongan's correct, means sea eagles. They've only ever once in their history beaten a top tier one nation, and that was Australia, but that was back in 1973. So I don't think we read too much into that.
No.
And as of September the 2nd this year, they were ranked number 15 in the world. So, I mean, let's be real about this. We're not going to lose to Tonga, are we? I mean, I think...
Dan, we've already established this. Look, we don't need to talk about being realistic. We've been as realistic as we possibly can. England unbeaten till after the World Cup. So,
well, okay, let's put it this way. I think Tonga's biggest threat to us might be looking at the physicality and the toll that they have on, not necessarily from an injury perspective, but or just on the body generally, knocks and bruises. So I think that's where Tonga will become a tougher game. But their last outing, they got absolutely trounced by the All Blacks, didn't they? What was it, 92-7, I think it was?
Well, the All Blacks took a man off the field for the last 10, 15 minutes just to practice playing with 14 men.
I think that was quite smart.
I agree. I mean, there was massive uproar on social media, people saying that was being disrespectful, and I commented on it. I was like, well, how is it being disrespectful? Like, Tonga were never going to win the game. As it was nearly 100 points.
It's not disrespectful.
And it's a World Cup warm-up game, the whole point of which is to try things out, to test scenarios. And if you're going to play two teams against each other that are so far apart, then... what are you going to do? I mean, if New Zealand had gone into that game and treated it like the World Cup final, it'd have been 200 points. They needed to try things out. And what a great opportunity to try out a very real scenario.
Completely. I must admit, if I was a Tongan player on the pitch, I might have felt a bit mugged off, but I wouldn't have. But equally, if I was an All Black,
I think if you're Tonga playing against New Zealand,
applaud the decision.
Yeah, I think if you're Tonga playing against New Zealand, you don't get upset about it. You're like, fair enough. Could you take a couple of others off? Maybe we can even the game up a bit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. If I play tennis against Andy Murray and he starts serving underhand, I'm not gonna start saying he's so disrespectful to me. He should show me the same respect, because we're just in completely different places tennis-wise. I'd destroy him. But either way, Tonga first up. Next up, USA. So they're ranked number 14 in the world.
They're climbing.
They are climbing, and their last 10 matches have won 7, lost 3. But you've got to look at who they beat. So they beat Romania, Brazil, Chile, and they're beating Canada and Samoa the same as Tonga did. I mean, Tonga-USA could actually be quite a good game. They're ranked next to each other in the world. USA have lost to Japan, they lost to Uruguay, they lost to Ireland. Are they a threat to us? Not especially. I actually think the USA match is less dangerous than the Tonga match because of what I said about the sort of body impact. Although it is worth noting, last year the USA did beat Scotland.
True. I mean, I don't recall these days. If you want to watch a Scotland game, you've got to download, subscribe to yet another pay-per-view service. So I just don't tend to see any of their games.
I'm not doing that. It was Scotland had toured the USA. They put out a second team. They lost by a point. We don't really read into it.
No,
but,
I think
still beat a Scottish team.
They did, but like you say, you've got to when you're looking at these results with a view to the impact they're going to have on a World Cup, on World Cup results where teams are not going to be risking losing out by putting out a second or third string side. I think you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, haven't you? It's about who's performing against top teams, playing their top sides, putting everything into winning. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that. I think the USA, we definitely keep an eye. I don't think it's going to be long, but we said it recently. We said not this World Cup, probably not the next World Cup, but 2027 will it be? 2027.
Well, the next one will be 23. Yeah, 27.
Yeah, so 27. Yeah. I think that that will be an interesting one because I think that over the course of the next 8 years, USA have got the pool of players. They just need to convince them that rugby is a game to invest in. There's so much money in American football, and really,
it looks like they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. They're moving in the right direction, and it's improving all the time. And that's why I think this World Cup's definitely too soon. I think the next one probably is just too soon as well. But yeah, come 2027, I think there could be another top tier nation in the USA for sure.
I'm still sceptical, but I fully see what you're saying.
But on what basis? If they're number 15 in the world now, I mean, where were they 10 years ago?
14. They're number 14. No, they are getting better. But I mean, to break in, okay, top tier, but
top tier is what? Top 10?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. Yeah, I think it's top 10. But they might break into it. I still don't see it in the next. I think it would have to be another 4 or 5 World Cups before they become a reality of possibly winning the thing, assuming they keep moving in the right direction. And actually, just slightly interestingly, USA's biggest ever defeat was against England, which was in 1999. And it was 106-8 to England that day.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think we're going to see anything like that from the USA now. But this is the difference. That was 1999, 10 years later, and they're a very different side. You go another 10 years, not even another 8 years. I think they'll surprise. I don't think it's even that much of a surprise. Look at the player pool they've got. I mean, if you were to theoretically take the best of the best from at the moment we're sending rugby players over there to have a crack at American football. If you can convince some of those American football players that actually rugby is a sport they should take a look at, they've got everything, haven't they? So it's purely about changing the mindset, and if they can do that, they become a potential world beater.
So that's the thing. Their potential is huge, but it's whether that materialises, because you've got in American football, which I guess is the reason we mentioned that is most closely linked from American sports, obviously. Mm-hmm. You've got to, that's such an institution over there. I think it takes a lot to get people round to rugby. Although, do
you know what? From a fan's perspective, for sure, but bottom line is money. There's so much money in American football, and the same money doesn't exist in rugby at the moment. And you're never going to convince someone who can do both to go for the one that's going to pay them, a tenth of the amount of money. So once the money's there, I mean, and obviously the thing with American sports, and if they can get the money into a similar sort of area, is you're going to attract foreign players. Some people would argue that's a bad thing, but by attracting foreign players, you then attract other homegrown players to get involved, because they then get the opportunity to play with some of the best players in the world. It all starts to come full circle. I mean, you look at Japan, they're becoming better and better all the time, and they are attracting a lot of foreign players. Often, to be fair, later in their careers, their last few years of their careers, it is quite commonplace. But nevertheless, it's attracting more and more players from the wider rugby world. So I think we keep an eye on them. But I agree, this World Cup isn't the one. Tonga, USA shouldn't be a threat to England. It's about game management. It's about getting through those games with a full squad of fit players. But that moves us on to Argentina. Now, Argentina, lots of people talking about how, they have a good World Cup record and, they're one to watch and don't underestimate them. But, following this trend of looking at past results, Argentina, so first of all, I've gone a little bit further back and I've gone, right, Argentina results against England. So England have won 18 out of 23.
Yeah.
Argentina have won 4 out of 23. There's been 1 draw. Points difference is England have scored maybe twice as many points. In terms of
when the last time Argentina beat us? Sorry, were you coming on to that?
The last time Argentina beat us was in 2009.
Okay.
That was their last victory at home. In Argentina, it was 24-22. There were 2 points in it. It was Martin Johnson's lot. It
was also a Lions tour year, wasn't it? So we would be missing our Lions players.
Yes, exactly. So it wasn't a full strength England side, and it was very much a bad start. And in the second half, England were coming back, and yeah, you needed 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes on the clock. England ran out of time, basically. Doesn't change anything. They got to win, but that's their only victory against England in the last 10.
Okay, well, Argentina, and just to keep you, Ben, happy, they love a cliche. Argentina do often turn up at World Cups. I mean, they got to the semi-final last time out. So
yeah, they did. Okay, but okay,
not dismissed. But we are still heavy favourites.
No, but hold on. So 2019. No, I have to stop you. 2019, they've won 0 from 4. 2018, they won 2 from 12, beating admittedly South Africa and Australia, but in both cases lower strength sides in the Rugby Championship for away matches. In 2017, 2 out of 12. In 2016, 3 out of 13. In 2015, the last Rugby World Cup, they won 7 out of 13, but 2 of those were Uruguay and Paraguay in the South American Cup. South Africa, fair enough. And then in the Rugby World Cup, they beat Georgia, Tonga, Namibia, and then their big one was Ireland.
So I'm not, absolutely. And I'm not saying that...
So I think, but my point is that to say they turn up for World Cups.
Look at their quality of opponents. So when they lose these games, it tends to be the All Blacks, the Aussies, the South Africans, and they've beaten those teams. I think we will beat them, and I think we'll beat them comfortably. But all I'm saying is that they are a potential threat, whereas I don't see Tonga and USA as a potential threat.
Agree to disagree, I think.
I think we'll have to.
I mean, look, Argentina have won 14 of their last 54 games.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
but again, look, you're looking at quality of opposition.
Well,
as well.
Yeah, that's against good quality opposition.
Yeah, exactly. So they're losing to top quality opposition,
like England.
Yeah.
Boom. 14 of 54. That to me, that says enough.
No, it does say. The only thing I'd say, don't forget, I think it was 2017 on the lines when we toured Argentina. One game, we only beat them with a last-minute Denny Solomona try, I believe. So
but again, it was a Lions year. It was an England second-string side.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we'll lose to Argentina. I don't think for a second we will, but it's not impossible.
Mate, listen, nothing's impossible, but you know, we believe in.
Of course we do. Of course,
England, and you know, just of course not. It's a little bit too fence city to say nothing's impossible, because nothing. You know, Japan could win the World Cup. It's not impossible. It's probably not going to happen. So we don't deal in what's possible. Otherwise, we'd be the ultimate fence sitters. England winning the World Cup. They're unbeaten until after the final. Come on, Dan.
Yeah, no. I 100% believe that. France. I'm interested to hear that.
So this is actually another interesting one. So, you know, the England record, I've got to get my order right here. So the England record in the last 10 matches, England have won 7 out of 10 of their last games. And but that is taking out. Have that taken out 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Yeah, that's not including the World Cup warm-up games of 2015, which was 1 apiece. England won at home, France won away, just because of the nature of a warm-up game. France beat England in France in 2018. England beat France at home this year in the Six Nations 44-8. That was a drubbing. So yeah, a bit more mixed, but yeah, 7 out of 10 in England's favour. In World Cups, it's 3-2 to England. In Six Nations history, it's 13-7 to England. I mean, you've got to go all the way back to the start of records in 1910 and look at everything to sort of see 56-34 to England. But that's going too far away. I think if we look at Six Nations history, that's since 2000, 13-7. England 2/3 of the wins. The records are with us. In terms of France, in their last 5, looking at the last 5 years, they've won 4 out of 8 this year. They won 3 out of 11 in 2018. They won 3 out of 11 in 2017. They won 4 out of 10 in 2016. And in 2015, obviously Rugby World Cup year, they won 7 out of 13, but 3 of those were Italy, Romania and Canada. So in the last 5 years, 21 out of 53 is the France record. It's not great when you consider that England. So looking at the three teams, these three, England, France, and Argentina. Argentina have won 14 out of 54. France have won 21 out of 53, and England have won 44 out of 58.
Yeah, France. France can be absolute clowns. They really can. But where France is a tricky one is the quality of talent they have. And even we saw against Scotland in the I think in the first World Cup warm-up game, France absolutely took them apart. France,
and yet the following week they lost.
Yeah, exactly, and you Ben will love this because it's another cliche. You never know which France will turn up, which actually I hate myself. But France on their day are a real threat. Those days, certainly over the last few years, have got less and less, and it got to a point where I was like, France are jokers. But you just can't dismiss the quality of talent they have. But then, having said that, Fiji, if you look at the players Fiji have, they could potentially be the best team in the world. They're not. They're not nearly that. So,
I just, I think we're looking at all these games as what's going to happen when they play against England, as opposed to how are they going to perform in the World Cup. And I just think England are so well drilled at the moment. They're in such good condition. They have such strength in depth. They've grown as a team, and they look ready. And yeah, France have had a couple of France had a big performance against Scotland. Scotland haven't been great recently, and that the result at Twickenham aside, because bottom line is England just let them off the hook there for some reason. They'll see that as a massive comeback to draw against England, but they were nearly 40 points down at half time. So yeah, that's an issue for England to have let them back into the game. But the fact is, they got to
I don't think we'll see that again. No, I don't think we'll see that again from this.
But this team is now looking so drilled, and I just think we're looking at past results as a way of gauging how teams are performing at the moment. And the bottom line is, France have not been performing particularly well recently. Now you can argue that that's they're due a win or whatever, but I don't know. I think winning breeds winning. We've said that many times, and because we like cliches. And at the moment, France aren't in winning form. Yes, they beat Scotland, but then the following week they went and lost to Scotland. Then they beat Italy. Well, that doesn't really tell us very much. So I think when push comes to shove, 80 minutes, this England team looks far more formidable even than France. Sure. So yes, we can say anything can happen, but we're not going to do that because that would be too fence city. I think we're going to say England will destroy them. Comfortable winners of Pool C.
I think so.
I've read out the last 5 years of results for both France and Argentina. I mean, for England, 7 out of 10 in 2019, 6 out of 12 in 2018, wasn't great. 10 out of 11 in 2017, 13 out of 13 in 2016, 8 out of 12 in 2015, despite their World Cup problems.
Jesus. Yeah.
So that's far better results than either of Argentina or France, regardless of oppositions, just in terms of winning, breeding, winning. So I feel confident. I feel good. We've got France on the 12th of October, place. Argentina on the 5th of October, but before that we've obviously got Tonga on the 22nd of September. That's the next one. That's a week on Sunday. Cannot wait. And then USA 4 days later, on the 26th. It's all happening now, Dan.
It is. It's all happening, and it's coming. It's coming over quickly. I'm pretty damn excited about this one.
I am too. I have no doubt people will be like, you said you were going to discuss Pool C, and all you did was read out the results for the different teams in it, instead of talking tactics. But of course, we're going to be looking at each game individually before it happens. So we will talk more about the teams and what they're likely to bring in terms of the way England are going to need to play against them, etc. when we discuss those games individually. Just as a
exactly,
heads up. Just as a heads up. So we try to avoid any more one stars from people saying that we're not tactically on point.
But as a fans pod and as a fans, I think giving information helps fans make their own decisions, which is what we're about. We're not trying to tell people. So I think good job. Well done, Hackers.
Thank you, mate.
Good job.
I think my voice might be breaking.
About time.
Yeah, exactly. So anything else you want to add, Dan? Oh, actually, do you know what? There's a couple of other things. So we've kind of done Pool C, but actually few little things have just been. I was checking out before the recording today. So you might have already known this. Some might not. I didn't. England are in line for a £7 million jackpot to share between them if they win the World Cup. When they win the World Cup, so that'll be nice.
Wow.
I wonder if they'll donate it.
Will they? Well, no, if you don't you dare donate that if you win the World Cup, boys. You've earned it.
Well, it depends what they would consider donating it to.
Fair enough.
I can imagine Owen Farrell donating it to that charity that he. I forget what it's called.
Just Jack.
There's Just Jack.
Just Jack. Yeah, and actually, boys, do whatever you want with your own money. Don't listen to me.
Indeed. So yeah, that was just a little bit of knowledge for those that didn't already know it. Interestingly, though, a couple of other things. So Danny Cipriani has not so much come out and said anything untoward. He's been very supportive of the England team, but interestingly, he has said that going into a big competition, and he's been quoted here, I would have had to have turned water into wine to sway Eddie Jones. So he knew that it was an all but impossible task to convince Eddie Jones to take him, and he's very respectful of the decision that Jones made to go with Farrell and Ford, and he says they're two great players, and he obviously wishes England the best of luck. But he seems like it was pretty much he knew.
Yeah, and do you know what? There's what I'll say on that is right now, like we said last pod, that actually with George Ford we get the decision. But at the time, when you were looking at that squad and sent home, Danny Cipriani had been the best player in the Premiership. It seemed ridiculous not to take him at the time. As it's turned out, now it probably seems less so because of the way they've played. So I do get where he's coming from, and I think he's done it in the right way. I understand why he said it, and I think he did it in a
yeah, for sure. No, it wasn't in any way a complaint, or it was just interesting, and I agree. I think he's been quite respectful in the way he's gone about it, and he said, look, I had there were a lot of hurdles that needed to be climbed, and he's picked two really, really strong players. He's put his faith in Ford and Farrell, and they've done really well for him. So you have to understand it. Tough decisions have to be made, and sometimes it's a question of, do you go with tried and tested, or do you take a punt? And Eddie Jones went with tried and tested in the case of his playmakers at fly half. So
because Mike Brown's also come out and said he still believes he's the best fullback in England. Fair enough. You've got to back yourself. I respectfully disagree, Mike Brown.
I also respectfully disagree. I think, that was the next thing I was going to bring up, and I think that's a slightly odd one to come out with. I have no doubt he's sitting somewhere having read this, going, "That's not what I said at all."
It may well have been misquoted, but it's.
Although he told BBC Radio 5 Live, so we can probably check. But yeah, if that is exactly what he said. It says in quote marks here, I feel like I'm the best English fullback, and I think I showed that last season.
He had a good Premiership season.
I mean, well, what about good? Well, good.
Yeah, well, exactly. He had a good Premiership season. Like I say, I respectfully disagree. But
but he wasn't even voted the best.
Well, because he wasn't
in his position within the Premiership. So how is he the best in England? I think that's a pretty ballsy thing to say. I mean, that's the sort of thing you only say when you know your England career is done. But it's interesting that he later in that interview goes on to say that he won't comment on the Tio incident at this stage, but he will at some point. But right now, he doesn't feel comfortable doing it while the boys are out, in Japan, doing their best. And I don't know. It feels a little weird. The whole interview, the whole thing. It's like I'm not going to disrespect the rest of the team, but but I am better than them.
Except for the fullbacks.
I think that ship has sailed, my friend. So yeah, that was a bit odd. But like you say, back yourself. Why not? I don't think it's going to change anything. I'm not sure you're the next. Well, I mean, is he the next one on the plane? Not the next person on the plane, but in the event that we need a specialist fullback, is he getting the call up?
Yeah, possibly, quite possibly. It depends how much impact that incident with Tio had on Eddie, and how much Eddie is willing to.
And if it had even a little bit of an impact on Eddie, and then he reads this, is he going to be like, do you know what? Screw you. I'll find someone else.
I don't think so, because I don't think he's saying it disrespectfully. I think he's just saying I back myself.
I mean, that's one way to read into it. He is saying that I wasn't selected, but I'm the best fullback in England. So therefore, he is basically saying that Eddie Jones has picked someone who's not as good as him.
True.
He's implying that Eddie Jones has made a mistake.
If Elliot Daly or Anthony Watson got injured for putting them out of the World Cup, I suspect Mike Brown might be the call-up.
Although he has got an extra back three player.
Yeah, but
anyway.
I mean, as a fullback,
maybe.
Because if one of those got covered, you would want a fullback.
I know who I would want.
Good.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But
the fact he wasn't involved in camps. And
yeah. But I just wonder whether though he's burning bridges with comments like that. But
I don't think Eddie will care too much about that.
We shall see. England, they're conditioning wise, they're looking strong. I think we're going to be all right. I think we're going to get through it. We've got guys who are going to be coming back from injury at the time when potentially there'll be people going out with injuries. I think we just cross off things. We just hope that inevitably there are going to be some niggles throughout the competition. Let's just hope that nothing is serious enough that people have to be sent home, and that they're things that can be dealt with in camp and there's no long-term injuries. Because how amazing would it be for this group of 31 to fly home at the end of the World Cup with the trophy, and all of them be fit? That would be strong.
Yeah, I'd love that. And we will fly back with the trophy, but like you say, it'd be lovely if it's this group of 31.
And interesting, Dylan Hartley obviously commenting on the fact that he's basically heartbroken that he's not involved, but has said that when England win the World Cup, he will be gate crashing the celebrations, and he will be on that tour bus. And you know what? Well, fair enough, because this campaign has been 4 years in the making, and he was a massive part of the first two of those, including an unbeaten year. So,
I wouldn't resent him, Mike Brown, or Danny Care a place on that tour bus.
No, absolutely.
There's possibly others I'm missing as well. Maybe a Chris Robshaw, maybe a Haskell.
I think both, for sure. Bring them all in. Why not? It's been a 4-year journey. Look, I mean, in Hartley's case, an injury. He says that he tried to get back too quickly. That was one of the major problems. Is that his injury? He knew he'd been given a deadline to get back in time for the training camps, and he pushed himself, and it didn't work. Now, you could argue that he's not in form, but equally, I guess there's a question, and if he was fit and firing as he had been, in 2016, 17. Would you at the very least have had him instead of Cowan Dickey? And I think probably what he adds offers more. What he added back then, for sure. So I don't know.
It's a tough one, but I want to make sure we now. I mean, I think it was right to sort of discuss it now with what's coming in the paper. But from now on, let's try and make sure that we now don't discuss who's at home, who's not. Let's only 31 focus.
31 focus. Indeed. Well, look, guys, we shall let you get on, but we will be back next week because we've obviously got England versus Tonga to discuss in more depth ahead of that game. The game itself is on Sunday, so we'll try and get something out this time next week, I guess. When do we think? Sunday, Thursday, Friday is probably when he's going to announce the team.
We'll get something out once the team's announced, yeah.
Yes.
Although possibly earlier, we'll see.
Maybe we'll do two. Maybe we'll just inundate people with episodes because it's the World Cup.
And midweek one.
We've spent 2 years doing this.
Yeah, exactly. We'll wing it, but we'll definitely next week there'll definitely be 2 out because there'll be a week 1 and a match day 1.
Indeed. Guys, thank you so much for listening. As I said, get in touch. EnglandRugbyPod@gmail.com or on social media @EnglandRugbyPod. Rate us, review us on Apple, or I'm sure there are other places that you can write reviews, but the Apple podcast charts and things all look at the reviews and things that come from there, and that's where I tend to pick them up from as well, so to read them out. But if in doubt, chuck us an email. Let us know what you think on there. And just keep it coming, keep spreading the word, because it's literally, we've got a week tomorrow. It starts a week tomorrow. So this is what it's all been about. Spread the word and tune in next week when it properly kicks off.